How to make things happen, boosting worker productivity, enthusiasm, and commitment. In this next session, you will learn how to make things happen, including increasing employee productivity, how to effectively praise your employees, help employees set goals, and harness workers' internal motivation. Increasing productivity begins with effectively assessing workers' skills and matching them to the assignments. Take Yoko, for example. Yoko's manager gives her the task of creating a web page using Adobe's Dreamweaver and tells her she needs it ASAP. Yoko wonders why her manager gave her the assignment since she's never used Dreamweaver, while several of her coworkers have. Don't be guilty of assigning tasks to employees who are not the best choice. Let's take Yoko's manager for just a moment. What are some reasons a manager would give an employee a task and that employee might not be best suited for the task? Now, as you think about this answer, some of the things you might consider would include, well, maybe the manager wanted to see how far she could stretch Yoko. Or maybe he gave her the assignment because she seems to get everything done that he gives her. The reason a lot of supervisors assume that Yoko was given the task was because the manager did it intentionally. Oftentimes, managers do this unintentionally. Oftentimes, you have a worker you work with who is, I like to say, the go-to guy or the go-to gal. You know who they are. You go to them and they get it done. We'll come back to that story in just a moment. A way to make sure you don't do this is to observe the worker's skills. See what they can do and what their limitations are. Review the work outcomes. Also, deal effectively with poor performance and problem behavior. There are 6 anchor points I mentioned earlier that you can deal with as a supervisor that will help you deal with every issue you face in work and life. So let's go back to the Yoko story. The 6 anchor points, as I like to say, the first 3 have to do with projects or tasks or actions, and the last 3 have to do with people, departments, or personality. So the first 3, and feel free to write these down, are time, quality, and budget. Every task, every action, every project has an expectation or limitation of time, an expectation of quality, and a limit on budget. So the first 3, time, quality, budget. The next 3 have to do with people, departments, or personalities, as I mentioned, skills, behavior, and attitude. So you ask yourself, does the person have the skills to do this job in the time required? Do they have the skills to do the job to meet the quality expectations? Do they have the skills to do the job within the budget expectations? Now, the beautiful part about this is the answer is yes or no. Then that moves us to the second question. Do they have the behaviors to do the job in those 3 areas as well? And behaviors, these are the daily disciplines, the daily habits that a person brings to the table to do the job. As I mentioned early during this training, one of the things you let new hires know that as a supervisor you're looking for in the next 90 days is number 1, can they do the job? And number 2, can they get along with people? And this is the test that they can answer, which is going to give you the yes or no, whether they can do that. Behaviors, these are the daily disciplines, the daily habits that they bring to the job, whether you, the supervisor, is watching them or not. Attitude. Attitude impacts all aspects of the job. Somebody can be great with time, deliver great quality, stay within budget, have the skills to do their job and their daily behaviors and disciplines. The problem could be attitude. And if you have an employee who is not meeting the expectations of the job when it comes to attitude, this is extremely important to fix, because they become the metaphoric weed within your organization. And if you are not careful, they will choke the life out of other departments. So let's talk about how to fix these issues. If it's a time issue, the goal is, or the target, or the end in mind, to be on time. If Petunia struggles with being late, we're going to say, Petunia, I need to talk to you about being on time. The quality, to fix that is we want the best quality from the person. Let's say, for example, the person is in the accounting department or is a bookkeeper. Which is more important, to have a bookkeeper who is good at their job or a person who is time-driven with their job? So here's what I mean. Would you rather have a bookkeeper who was fast or accurate? Now, both are important. You know as well as I do that accurate is much more important than fast, because who cares how fast a bookkeeper is if their work is riddled with errors? So the goal of that project or that job would be quality, and time would be such a close second that they have to do it in a manner that hits the quality and the time frame right thereafter. If it's a budget issue, oftentimes employees are not given budgets. What they are given, though, are hours. So let them know this job needs to be completed within this time. I had a nurse come to me who told me she had 10 employees, they were her nurses, that needed to restock the medicine cabinets in the hospital. She told me when she used to do that job, it took her between 20 minutes to 30 minutes to get the job done. And so I asked her, what was most important? Was it getting it done on time, getting it done with the highest quality, or getting it done within budget? And the way you determine that is figure out which is the weakest one first, then which is the strongest one, and the middle one falls in between. And so in her case, budget was the least or weakest constraint because it had to get done. And it didn't matter how many times they had to do it because it had to get done right, which brought us to the driving constraint of the project, which was quality. There was no margin for error for putting the medicine in the wrong capsules. You had to put the right medicine in the right capsules. And so in this case, quality was the driving constraint, budget was the weakest constraint, therefore time fell in the middle. What she told me was her 10 employees were each taking about an hour of time to get a job done that really should have taken 20 to 30 minutes. And so the suggestion to her was to go back and create a healthy competition. Divide her team into a group of 3, 3, and 4, and let them compete with each other. And let them see who could have the highest quality in the shortest period of time. And whoever won the contest at the end of 30 days got some kind of a gift card, whether it be a coffee card or a hobby card or a card to a favorite sports store, whatever it might be, a $20 card as a thank you and an appreciation. Now, what this nurse said to me was she said, we don't have a budget for that. And I said, okay, here's where you can be creative. If you go to your boss and you explain, we have 10 employees, it's costing us 10 man-hours per week to take care of this. If I can cut this in half, can I have part of the money we're saving to use a little towards an incentive program? Now, there's no guarantee that your boss will say yes on something like that. The bottom line here is, though, you will be saving your organization on their bottom line. If the employee doesn't have the skills to do the job, this is the easiest one to fix. Train them. Remember to take into consideration what is their learning style. Are they an auditory processor? Are they a visual processor? Are they a kinesthetic processor? Or do they read the written word? And then let them listen to, watch, or attend a seminar, or read something to give them the skills. If it's a behavior issue, counsel the employee on how their behavior impacts you and the team, and then give them a duration of time to practice the preferred behavior. My suggestion is at least 2 weeks, because as we've talked about already, it takes about 21 to 30 days for a person to get in the habit of the new behavior. So counsel them, let them practice it, and at the 2-week mark, measure for improvement. If it's an attitude issue, the same concept applies here. Counsel them, let them practice the new attitude, and this would be part of a performance improvement. Now, something I want to give you when it comes to improving their attitude, make sure you identify what are the behaviors within the attitude, because just telling them you've got a bad attitude is not enough. They need to hear when you walk into somebody's department who's asked you for help and you put your hands on your hip, roll your eyes and say, "What?" Now you're demonstrating the behavior that is not desirable, that needs to be changed. Then you would tell them the behavior that you need instead. I need you to be patient with your coworkers. I need you to smile with your eyes, and I need you to be respectful. And I'm going to be checking on you for the next 2 weeks. Now, performance improvement is the way to deal with skills, behavior, and attitude, and also counseling. Remember, as a supervisor, you do have 2 more options. You can always transfer or terminate an employee. All of this was from the book Crazy Impact and was given complimentary for those 6 anchor points to help you hone in on any issue that you face with a worker or yourself through work or life. Let's move now into praising effectively. Some things to remember with praise. I talked about earlier what not to do. We don't want to overpraise. We don't want to praise generically. What you do want to do is praise with purpose. Instead of great job, tell the employee where they did a great job. Great job on your report. I really appreciate the details you put in there with the spreadsheet. That made it very easy to follow during the meeting. Target your praise. Be specific, as I mentioned, and even point out 2 or 3 things they did very well. Tell them what they're doing right, and that way they'll know and continue to do those things right in the future. Praise authentically. This is not, I'm just going to tell you something nice so I can tell you what I'm really thinking. Get in the habit of making deposits into people's emotional bank accounts that let them know that you actually care. Praise with the right frequency. Remember, if this is that analytical type, you're going to point to the data. You're going to point to their logic. You're going to point to what they did in the details. If this person is a relational person or the lamb, you're going to let them know you appreciated how they considered people in the project, how they were kind, how they were a good listener, how they came in and blended and melded the team. If they are the direct, bottom line, to the point person, they oftentimes don't need a lot of praise. They do need to know, though, that you know that they did a good job. So tell them, thanks for going the extra. I appreciate you stepping up and going beyond. That can be specific for that driver warrior type. And if they are that cheerleader, social extrovert type, give them the high five, woohoo! They'll love it. Have fun with it. Just match their style. Praise with the right frequency. Praise as close to the action as possible. I like to say within 72 hours. If you wait any longer than that, oftentimes they'll think you have forgotten what the action was, and maybe somebody had to remind you to praise them, or worse, they'll feel unappreciated and think that you just don't care. Praise in public, reprimand in private, unless that goes against their style. Now, once you assign the right task to the right person and give the appropriate praise, remember to use SMART goals and tracking tools. You've probably heard and even used SMART goals throughout the years. I have a little twist that's a little different on SMART goals. Yes, they must be specific. Yes, they must be measurable. They must also be agreed upon and realistic and time-bound. Let's briefly go through those. Specific. We talked earlier. Specific. What are the job requirements? What do you need from them? And what's most important? Is it getting it done on time? Is it getting it done with the highest quality? Is it getting it done within budget? And then rank those 1, 2, 3. What is most important to least important? Those are measurable. Then agreed upon. If it is just your goal and the other person doesn't agree to it, it's not theirs. So make sure to get them to agree to take ownership of that task or that goal. Realistic. Can they do the job? Let's not be like Yoko's manager and assign the wrong task to the wrong person. Can they get the job done based on their skills and based on their time, not just because they're your go-to guy or your go-to gal? And then again, time-bound is there, because we don't want to just say end of the day, end of the week, or 2 weeks from now. You got it. 5 p.m. today, 3 p.m. Friday, state the date, or 2 weeks with a specific date on the calendar. Let's move now to how to harness workers' internal motivation. This begins with giving ongoing feedback. catching people doing the right thing. When you catch people doing the right thing, they will go out of their way, oftentimes to the ends of the earth for you because they know you care. You're catching them doing the right things and they're more inclined to listen and motivate themselves because your words now come in their head and motivate them to move forward. This also gives them improvement and growth opportunity. Let them know if you motivate yourself, your chance for advancement within this company increases. Now, of course, only say that if it's true. If they don't want advancement, find another motivator that works for them. Give them the authority to do the job. Let them take ownership of it. Offer flexible schedules. Now be careful with this one. Please do not reward bad behavior with a flexible schedule. For example, if an employee has a hard time getting to work on time, they might ask, gosh, if I could just come in a little bit later, I'd be on time. Please don't reward bad behavior. If an employee asks for that, let's say the job starts at 8 a.m., and they're asking you to come in at 8:30. Promise you, if you reward them for their bad behavior and they haven't earned it, 8:30 will turn into 8:40 and you'll have another issue on your hand. Instead, when you offer flexible schedules, if this is something permissible within your company, make sure it has been either earned or agreed upon in advance. In order to earn it, we let the person know, especially if they're struggling with being on time. All right, for the next 30, 60, 90 days, you choose which would be most appropriate. Choose which one. For the next 30 days, if you are on time at your workstation ready to go, then I will check and see if we can get you started at 8:15. Now what I have to do is see if there's some other people who can cover phones for you, myself included. So let me check on that. You start demonstrating your skills, and then when I go to my boss to find out, I will have a great track record from you to bring with me. You're rewarding good behavior. Stress personal accountability. That last illustration is a great way of doing that. Provide an open, trusting, and supportive environment. Let employees know what takes place is open and transparent unless it's confidential. When an employee begins to trust you, they will be more trusting towards you and with you. Involve workers in decisions, and with this one, be careful. Make sure they're moving towards the target. They're moving towards the goal. This is not, do you want to do this or do you not want to do this? Bring them in with decisions to move towards the goal. And then ask workers what motivates them. Now, most employees will say something like, more money. There's enough statistics out there to show you. Money does not motivate employees. Now, it helps. Incentive plans, though, help better, whether it be the thank you basket I talked about a little bit earlier, or whether it be a gift card of some sort, something that is their interest, because some employees won't use that card on themselves if it's just a plain money card, for example, or a check. They'll put it towards their light bill, or they'll put it towards somebody else. Give them something that's specific to them. Celebrate the employee and company success. Let them share in the success in a tangible manner, and offer interesting work assignments. Remember, when giving instructions, clear communication will save you and your employees countless hours of frustration and unnecessary work. Let's take an example from this following story. Hey, Chris, I forgot to tell you that I need that report done using graphs, not a spreadsheet. Now, consider the time and energy that Chris has wasted. All of your skills as a successful manager or supervisor are predicated on the one most important leadership skill of all, clear communication. It is always the sender's responsibility to make a particular communication as clear as possible for the receiver. And as I added earlier, it is always the receiver's responsibility, especially as the supervisor, to ask clarifying questions to make sure they understand the sender and the sender's message. Here are 6 keys to improve clarity. Number 1, use the simplest words available. Don't pontificate, just speak. Avoid indefinite words such as, when you get around to it, when you get a chance. Use specific words. Isolate important ideas into separate statements. Think in terms of bullet points or paragraphs. Each bullet point is a standalone item. Each paragraph has one main idea with support sentences for that idea. Follow the grammar rules within reason. Remember, grammar has changed over the years. In this day and age, people are a lot more relaxed in their conversation and when using grammar. Now you might be saying to yourself, methinks thou protesteth too much. Exactly. We don't use that style of communication anymore. And there are some people who are really focused on using grammar rules very specifically. And there are some people, when you use those grammar rules, they sound Shakespearean and like Old English. So stay within reason. Be aware of your nonverbal skills. Remember, what you say comes out of your eyes before it ever comes out of your mouth or your body. And check with the receiver periodically for clarification. In fact, when you're bringing in the 4 learning styles with communicating, let them write down what you're saying and then check in with them periodically by saying something such as, all right, we've covered this point and this point. What other things have we covered? Could you go ahead and just read back to me what we've covered so far so I don't be redundant? Now, by doing that, you're casual, you're informal, you're also making sure that your receiver has understanding. In this session, you learned how to make things happen by increasing employees' productivity, effectively praising, helping employees set goals, and harnessing workers' internal motivation. Let's move now to getting the job done right and on time, how to manage projects and priorities.